Penn State 34, Bowling Green 27 in game. Penn State fans, I think, thought would go a lot differently than it did. I'm Greg Pickle. That's Sean Fitz and Nate Bauer from Blue White Illustrated. This video was so nice. We're doing it twice, Sean. So running back to thoughts that you had after this game, where do you come out of it looking at Penn State as they go into the bye week?
Well, it's a big mood difference from last week at Morgantown. Penn State had a ton of momentum, maybe a little too much momentum, hearing about how great they were, over the last week or so. All of a sudden, Bowling Green comes out and punches them in the mouth. I mean, that's, you expected Bowling Green to be the better of the two MAC teams, but still, you didn't expect Bowling Green to come right down the field, score right away, and then do it a couple times in the first half. Penn State's defense absolutely gashed. Yeah. There was no real one thing that you could pin down. It was through the air. It was on the ground. The quarterback was surgical at times. Yeah. And that's an issue that Penn State's going to have to think about going into the bye week. So the offense seemed to be, to counter that well in the first half. And the second half kind of slowed down a little bit. A couple of self-inflicted penalties and throwaways. The turnover from Drew Aller in the end zone didn't help things. But, there was a bit different feel from half to half with this one.
Yeah, no doubt. Nate, Penn State came out of the West Virginia game obviously on the high of highs, and it's not on the lows of lows because, as James Franklin said, it came into this game and got a victory even though it wasn't pretty. So just your initial thoughts on where Penn State is after this win and the way it played out.
You guys are going to be stunned to learn this, but I'm kind of in the middle where I don't think it's quite the panic-inducing. I get it. A MAC team, Penn State's aspirations are to be exceptionally good this year. Granted. However, I thought, and maybe you guys will disagree with me, that Bowling Green's quarterback was awesome in the first half. I thought he was really good. I thought his receivers made catches for him that Penn State's receivers didn't necessarily make for Drew Aller. Granted, a lot of that stuff happened in the first half, and that's where they scored all their points, or most of their points. The defense, was in position to make some plays, didn't. Totally fine to have critiques. There will be tons of things that they try to take away from this game and get better at. All of those are absolutely warranted. But I saw some good news in the sense of a Drew Aller performance that I thought, again, showed like demonstrable strides from the player that he was last year into the player that he is this year, in the sense of making plays. Right, last year, the whole. If I could encapsulate everything last year for Drew Aller, it was not making mistakes. This year, it has transformed from not making mistakes to, maybe making a couple of mistakes, but also making plays, unlocking some things for that offense that weren't available to them last year. So, we'll see what happens. Right, like they're either going to get better or they're not. But I certainly think that it's okay to look at Bowling Green and say, yeah, they played pretty well in the first half and deserved to be in that game because of it.
Sean, I know it's one thing that stood out to you is how the offense for Penn State came out firing and then maybe wasn't on all cylinders in the second half, and it was vice versa for the defense. What do you make of that and the halftime changes both sides of the ball made in this game?
Yeah, you're going to have to look at the tape for that, but it's tough to explain because there were instances where Drew hits Omari Evans for a deep ball. Yep. Offensive pass interference. You get down in the red zone. He throws a really ill-advised pass. He's got the 23-yard loss in the sack. So these things kind of just got in their own way. Now, all credit to Bowling Green. They were excellent. I think Bowling Green gave them a much better test than West Virginia did last week. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you have to sort of grind out the edges on. And I think the funny thing to me, not so much funny, and I know people watching this video are not laughing at all. So Penn State, we talked all the summer about how Andy Kotelnicki is going to have to help out Drew to get the ball to his people. Well, Drew seems like he was in a pretty good spot today. And his people, Trey Wallace, no catches. Yep. Julian Fleming had one catch, I believe. Yep. Mari Evans, a big drop. Yeah. Katron Allen, the big drop on one of the better throws that you'll see a quarterback making against the grain. So a lot of things like kind of the flipping the script on what we expected from this offense. Right. You still saw some creativity. You saw Tyler Warren involved big time, which is such a huge part of this offense because that is, that's going to take itself and meld into the running game. That short stuff in the flat's going to be their bread and butter, and they're going to keep coming back to Tyler Warren. A lot of yards after catch with him as well. I thought he was spectacular today. And then you get Nick Singleton the ball. You can finally exhale when Nick Singleton runs into the end zone there in the north end zone in the fourth quarter. But you'd rather not do that against a MAC team. Yeah,
no doubt about it. Nate, you want to talk about Nick now?
Yeah, no, I do. I do think that
I thought he was going to steal your thunder there for a second.
Yeah, don't you dare. I think that there's a little bit of a I understand that there's multiple ways to look at this, but if there's a silver lining, it's okay. When a bunch of players did not have their best, Penn State still had an arsenal that could compete and win, right? And so, yeah, Trey Wallace was a non-factor, right? Omari Evans didn't make the spectacular catch that he did the week prior. And honestly, I mean, just the receivers in general. It's the thing that we thought it was. Like that's still a thing, but they still have a Nick Singleton who can run 41 yards for a touchdown and would have gone 80 if it had been an 80-yard carry, right? You still have Tyler Warren doing the things that he can do. There are ways for this team. There is enough diversity of depth that they have in terms of offensive playmakers that you don't have to have it all going at the same time to still have options. That's going to change, right? There are going to be opponents that Penn State plays this season that they're not going to be able to get away with that. But just to have it, I think it builds a library of things that defensive coordinators have to prepare for and have to be concerned about. And that only helps Penn State. That only helps Penn State going through the rest of the season, of which, long-winded way to get to it, Nick Singleton is a big one, right? We knew all offseason that he was going to be a focal point of this offense, even coming after last year where, right, people left feeling a little bit disenchanted, right, disillusioned by what he was able to do last season. Big words. Not me. No, not me. Right? Yeah. No, I wrote. So he is the player that he was as a freshman. He's being given opportunities to succeed that I didn't think he was necessarily last season, and he's proving that. He's putting that on film. He's doing things for this Penn State offense that it desperately needs, and it's changing the complexion of what they can do in the process.
3 notes on the bumps and bruises front. Khalil Dinkins back in action today. Andrew Raplier not in action, out on the pregame availability report. KJ Winston played almost just the first quarter and none of the last 3. No updates from James Franklin on those guys, so we'll have to wait and see. But, Sean, final thoughts as we get ready to look ahead to the bye week?
Yeah, you can throw Tony Rojas in there. He was banged up for a good portion of the game, did come back in, made a spectacular play on an interception. I think the confidence you look at with the offense is you look at last week and what West Virginia gave you. That was what Trey Wallace took. He had the big game. Today, what you look at in the scheme of Bowling Green's defense, Tyler Warren was going to be open, and they found that, and they went to it. Now it's just building up the supplementary pieces there. Besides the running game, they had two running backs over 100 yards today. They got to work on some more of those outside weapons. Defensively, depth is continuing to be an issue. You talk about how important those 3 safeties are to Penn State. They played almost the entire game last week against West Virginia. Winston didn't look comfortable from the start. I'm not sure. He went out for a little bit in the first quarter, came back in. He got beat by the tight end, who, by the way, that's an NFL player right there. Yeah. But he got beat by the tight end and then came back out and didn't play the rest of the game. So get him healthy because he is so important to them. He gives them the ability to move Jalen Reed around, which, I mean, it's moving pieces in the back. Zakee Wheatley had the pick there at the end. He's an important guy as well. Linebacker depth. We're seeing a lot of Dom DeLuca. And
he was hurt in the third quarter, on a punt, third or fourth quarter, too.
Yeah, and that's Penn State's not at its best when they have 3 linebackers on the field. They got to get those 3 safeties healthy, and they got to get them back on the field.
Nate, final thoughts?
And Dom DeLuca playing in positions that are not natural to him, right? Like that's a big part of it. I thought it was funny, just a brief aside, but talking about the stressors that Penn State is under within the linebacker group, and I was talking to Kobe King after the game. His sentiment was not, it's not that we're stressed. It's guys are stepping up, guys are playing out of position. Dom DeLuca among them, and Kobe offering himself, right, saying, "Hey, if I'm needed at will, that's something that he has picked up." And obviously, they're all going to do what the coaches ask of them, but I do think it's a significant, difference of perception, right? Because we're looking at this as, oh man, they might be in a bind just with healthy bodies. They need bodies at that linebacker within that linebacker group. So it's going to be interesting to see how they proceed from here.
Sean, I know you're going to say it, but Sandra Sahadak, we can't move any further without mentioning him. Bounces back from the field goal miss at West Virginia. makes 2 today. Looked good on both of those kicks and the extra points too.
Yeah, I mean, you got to get that kid confident. If he's going to be your guy, of course, they have a couple of kickers that they think are close, but Sahadak missed the big one last week against West Virginia. Step back. They did not put him on the right hash this time, which I think is a big deal. Looked good making his 2 field goals. I mean, it's baby steps when you're talking about a guy that's trying to regain his confidence or get his confidence together. Special teams got some stuff to work on. Caden Saunders had the fumble. Gabe Nuoso kicked the ball out of bounds when you absolutely can't do that when you're trying to.
Got lucky it went out of bounds because there was a lot more Bowling Green guys there than Penn State guys. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, you've got some things to work on. I guess in all 3 facets going in the bye, and I guess that's where you focus next week.
Yeah, Penn State off next week, but we won't be at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Check in for the latest info on the team, recruiting, and much more. We will talk to you in 2 weeks from Beaver Stadium.